get into it.
Jesse.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Thank you for making time with us.
Of course.
Thank you for getting us the nice quiet room. I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. My
Shit
pleasure.
is loud outside. We're here because you're back in Australia for the second time this year. You're on tour with While She Sleeps, Ocean Sleeper, Boundaries. Incredible lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I wanted to kick things off by asking you, why are you back so soon? You were just here.
I know. I mean, last time we were here, we were telling Ash at Destroy All Lines, like, hey, we love coming here, but like, I feel like the last couple times we've come has been us headlining.
Okay.
And that's cool. But like you don't really get the opportunity to play in front of new people doing that.
Okay.
And so we were basically pleading with them, please get us a support tour.
Please support.
And then he's like, all right, motherfuckers, how about 5 months from now? And we were just like, holy shit, yeah.
That's crazy.
And so we took it, and normally we come once every 3 years or whatever, but it's been awesome. And we can see, you know, like you seeing real time new people, you know, kind of
vibing with it.
Yeah.
It
and for a band like us who've been around for 15 plus 20 years or whatever, and seeing a kid connect with us for the first time, like we're a new band.
Yeah,
that's all you can hope for.
That's awesome.
For you savages, it's getting hard to tell. A slave that exists, are we ever catching up? Big for it finishes. Will it ever be enough? Are we ever waking up? Anything go wrong for a seat at the table?
Is there a particular mindset you go into when you're doing like a supporting run versus the headline? Because like obviously you want to like, I don't know, put your best foot forward at all times, really.
Yeah.
You want to try and like convert new listeners.
Right.
Do you change the set accordingly, or are you
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I mean, because we have so many different, I mean, on the spectrum of hardcore and metalcore, we have like a wider spectrum than most bands.
Yeah.
And so it's like we can put together, if it's a heavier tour, we can put together a heavier set list, or if it's a more melodic tour, same thing.
Sing-alongs to breakdown ratio.
Yeah, but also at the same time, we don't want to misrepresent ourselves.
That's
so
true.
we make sure that we like, if we're on like a tour that's heavier or more like straightforward hardcore, we're still throwing in a bunch of songs that have singing in it.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, that's who our band is and vice versa. So what we've recognized is we are far more successful when we're the hardcore band on the tour.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than being the like metalcore band on the hardcore tour.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying.
So it's like, that's what we generally strive for. But yeah, I mean, right after this tour, we go on tour with Bane and Terror. So it's like,
so you're switching gears again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sick. I think that kind of versatility is important, but it's also kind of a testament to your place in your career, right? Because you have been doing this for the better part of 2 decades.
Yeah.
And you have been code switching, you know, through album to album. So like you're very like old hat when it comes to this.
Sure.
If we're talking about the band's discography, you know, I've been a fan since 2005, which makes me feel fucking old to even say.
Makes me feel old too.
But I think what I kind of love the most about the band is like there is so much growth musically, lyrically in the band, in your songwriting, in your lyrics. And in particular, I think politically as well, like you've become very outspoken in what the band represents, what you represent as the front man of the band. So I guess let's talk about that, because we are days away from the anniversary of October 7th and the ongoing escalation of the Israeli apartheid and Palestinian genocide. You guys recently contributed a track to a compilation kind of in support of the Palestinian cause. Could you talk to me about why you guys wanted to be a part of that and about Hostile Victoria?
Yeah. So the song was kind of like a B-side, so to speak.
It's like a demo, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was meant to be on Spectre.
Okay.
But it like kind of just didn't make the cut for whatever reason. Although lyrically, it's probably one of my favorite. Or the content of the song was very important to me.
Yeah.
It being about Victor Yara he's a Chilean activist and folk singer who was killed on what I call the first 9/11 in Chile. And when the U.S.-backed coup went and overthrew democratically elected President Salvador Allende, and Victor Yara was a huge part of his campaign, to the point where Salvador Allende said there is no revolution without songs.
Yeah.
And so Victor Yara kind of led that with a lot of amazing Chilean artists as well. And so, you know, that this is kind of a person who helped radicalize me, right? Because I think a lot of people, they look at Stick to Your Guns and look at an album like Diamond, and they're like, you were so inwardly focused and you're kind of focusing on who you are as a person and your spirituality and like your purpose here on this earth.
Yeah.
And to me, to them, they can't understand. They think it's like a crazy left turn that I went so hard on the political thing, when really my politics are just the material manifestation of that exact same thing,
I mean,
right?
Go listen to the first record.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
It's all there.
Exactly. And I say it plain as day.
Yeah.
They just maybe weren't listening then.
Exactly, yeah.
Or whatever. A lot of people were.
I certainly wasn't picking up on it because I was like, in 2005, like I was like 18,
Yeah,
like
sure,
17,
sure.
18, right?
Yeah,
So like, I didn't even think I had a political consciousness then. So like a lot of that stuff kind of skimmed over me.
Right.
And it was only in later years that I kind of had a development on that front. And now I go back and I listen to those older records and I'm like, oh no, Jesse's talking about that shit
No,
back
for
then.
sure. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, you know, it's kind of like this weird gaslighting thing when like fans of Stick to Your Guns will act as if like a song we release is out of nowhere. Oh my God, out of nowhere. They're all of a sudden, it's like, man, I've been talking the same shit for 15 years. You know what I mean?
I mean, you have to answer for why you went woke. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta give the people their pound of flesh.
No, for sure. But then I think, you know, we finally got an outlet through that compilation for Palestine to release this song, and maybe, you know, maybe there was something in the universe telling us not to put it on Spectre, but to actually maybe hold on to it so it could have a better, you know, kind of vehicle to use its political power of the song.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe in a weird way it was a blessing in disguise that it didn't make the record, but it made it on this compilation, you know?
I mean, I think it works perfectly on the compilation. Like, there's so much, you know, sick material on that compilation, and like obviously it's a very important cause. But I mean, you're like, I think the second or third song on that comp, so it's like it's right up front, and the rawness of like the demo quality kind of like works in that favor too.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think it's a great track. I wanted to kind of expand on it a little bit because I was thinking about this idea of kind of where hardcore is at the moment, and listening to that song reminded me of a track off a Foundation record called When the Smoke Clears.
Hell yeah.
And there's a song there called No One Writes Protest Songs Anymore. And like, great track, love Foundation. And I was just thinking about that and like what that title represents. And then I was like, well, if I think about Stick to Your Guns, like they've been writing protest songs. They have whole albums about protest songs. But there's like a lyric in Hostile Victoria where you say, the right to live in peace cannot be denied. The beat goes on, this melody sung till victory. And for me, that is like a protest song.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
definitely.
lyrics. And then to compare that with Foundation, like the kind of end of that track is saying like, I'd rather be crazy if this is what you call sane.
Right.
And I think those two things are very much in concert with each other, right? So like, my question to you is like, do you think of what you do as protest songs, as protest music in that tradition?
Sure. I mean, I think to a certain degree it is, definitely, you know what I mean? But I also don't want to kid myself in that just writing a song about a certain subject or whatever is like some kind of revolutionary act.
Sure.
It can be, or it can inspire a revolutionary act or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's just a form of expression that I'm using the music as a vehicle to express my frustration with a given thing. Yeah. What I do to act on that, to me, that's where the revolutionary moment comes in.
The material kind of like consequence of it.
Right. Rather than the like kind of just like talking about it or whatever, you know what I mean? Like we have I think in hardcore, everyone's like, oh, we need to raise awareness. And it's like, man, I call it the raising awareness industry. You know what I mean? Because it's just become like this weird non-profit type of like, defanged, toothless type of like movements that really don't accomplish anything. And so it's like, it's easy to become bitter and jaded when you're coming from hardcore or punk, and hardcore and punk, just like everything in the world, is a spectrum. And so it's like in hardcore, there's always been people who've cared more about the like aesthetic or the fashion or just the sound of it, than people who, you know, I've been kind of accused of. People love saying the phrase, "It's not that deep to me."
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Love that one.
Exactly. And I'm just like, yo, like, not to get too crude with it, but like, my dad fucked my mom and then like, you know what I mean? Sperm went to her and then went to an egg and then I came out of her. It's like everything in fucking life is that deep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Think about space. Think about everything.
Yeah.
It's so insanely deep. Deep is actually the only thing that it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If your view of the world is just like that surface level thing where you skim off the top of any kind of like big idea,
sure,
you are shortchanging yourself.
I think so
and your
too.
own time on this planet.
I absolutely think so too, and I think that with how big hardcore's gotten, how big metalcore's gotten, and how much money has come into it, there's kind of been this mentality where it used to be like the punk mentality was like never sell out, and now it's kind of like fuck yes, sell out, get your bags, say fuck it, who gives a shit, and I'm kind of somewhere in between there, right? Because it's just like the fact of the matter is, like, I look at Stick to Your Guns and what I do as my job, and I don't say that, you know, that's generally looked at in a negative way. I take pride in my work, and I take pride in my job. I like working. You know, I call myself a communist, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's because you're lazy, you don't want. I'm working from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. I love to work. I'm defined by my work.
Theory of labor.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's my job, and I know how demanding it is, and all that I really demand from it in return, especially of this industry that makes so much money off the backs of these fucking kids, is that I just make enough to be able to support myself and my family. That's all I'm asking. I don't want to be some rich person. I don't want to be famous. I don't want any of that. You know what I'm saying? So.
Kind of add to your point about like the people who like think that you've made some kind of leftward turn and like think that talking about these things with your music is some kind of like virtue signaling kind of project or whatever, like I would implore them to do like an ounce of research and see like the material stuff that you do, particularly with All Power Books, and all the stuff that you're like putting out into the world and into your local community to like, you know, put, you know, your money where your mouth is, you know what I mean? So
well,
like,
strangely enough, I don't blame anyone, especially someone who's not familiar with Stick to Your Guns, who wants to come in and like make some shitty comment like that, because it's like most of the time they would be right. You know what I mean? Because there is a lot of virtue signaling in this music. You know what I mean? There is a lot of like, oh, I'm going to say this or I'm going to say that, but I'm not going to back it up at all. And I also don't blame anyone for not really necessarily backing it up, because it's like they haven't learned how to do that. You know what I mean? Like everyone's just trying to figure it out, and I've just figured out this kind of thing that started as a small niche thing, and it still is on a global scale, but in Los Angeles, you know, All Power has become something that is like, it's hard to put into words, but what we get often, because we're not shy about our hammers and sickles at All Power, and we're not shy about our being socialists. You know, we don't hide that. In fact, we wear it right on the front. And we have people who come in and into our bookstore all the time who are not socialists, who are not communists, who wouldn't even consider themselves left wing. But we're able to bridge a gap there and help them understand what a lot of these phrases that just people generally use to virtue signal actually mean. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's exactly like you said. I think the thing that has given me a little bit of credibility is the fact that I will walk the words that I say. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people see that. But what they say to us is, if more socialists were like you, I'd be a socialist. And that's ultimately like, to me, like that's the key. It's not about making everybody a socialist. there's this quote from The Matrix, the third one, like the worst one.
Revolution.
Yeah, exactly. Where one of the guys says to Morpheus, I forget who it is, he says, "Not everyone believes what you believe."
Yeah.
And his response to that is, "My beliefs do not require them to."
Exactly.
And that's literally exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't give a flying fuck if you call yourself a conservative or a liberal or whatever. Because it's like, to me, that's,
Yeah.
who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? It's like, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, look, conservatives and liberals, at least as far as the average person understands, that's just a made up, some shit in their head that doesn't mean it. It's like Santa Claus. You know what I'm saying?
I think I'm picking up on kind of like a resonance here with what we started with, talking about the band, like playing to different audiences and trying to, like, you know, win over new fans, right? Like, in a way, like, you know, music is like, which team do you support?
Right.
And very much in the spectacle of politics, particularly US politics,
Right.
like, it's like, what team do you support, red versus blue? And it's like, if you're there just showing people, like, here's the information, make up your own mind.
Right.
We're here to add context for you.
Right.
Like, people respect that because they're like, oh, I'm not having shit shoved down my throat. I'm allowed to make an informed decision based on my own choices.
Right.
And that's all anyone really deserves.
Sure.
Right? Regardless
Sure.
of political affiliation.
Absolutely. And I try to say this all the time because, like, you know, I don't really believe in electoral politics or the electoral political process.
Sure.
But, like, I'm still going to vote for a socialist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in my mind, I just have to push for what I believe to be true in every aspect of life.
You got to put that energy out there somewhere.
Even if people are going to be like, oh, it's pointless. It's not, it's never going to whatever. Because, like, in most countries across the world, there's like 6 political parties.
Mm-hmm.
And what's good about that is it is able to root the other political parties in reality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we just have 2 political parties that are constantly being pulled more right wing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But when you have an actual communist party in your country, it's rooted in these principles that's able to at least keep the 2 reigning political ideologies from going too far right.
Yeah.
We don't have anything like that in the States. And that's why we just see everything going right wing.
I mean, they actively, like, made it that way.
Sure,
And,
sure,
like, and
exactly.
like eroded all of the different, like, levers of power that existed to kind of make that happen.
Right.
But at the same time, like, evangelize the idea of America as an institution as being, like, in support of that.
Sure.
Like, and I imagine as an American, that must be, like, deeply troubling to have to, like, constantly hear that propaganda, like, every day.
It is, but, like, seeing the way that America's influence is just being completely lost on the rest of the world now, because I think that people are just like, whoa. You know what I mean? It's just like, they just look at us and they're just like, y'all have lost the fucking plot.
Yep.
And that gives me hope. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been known for kind of saying extreme things. I lost my Instagram because of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like I want America to go down. And let me clarify that. When I say that, I'm not talking about I want someone to drop a nuke on the so-called American people and, you know, slaughter people who are trying to have barbecues with their families in a cul-de-sac or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, that's not what America is. America is a real estate grift, an LLC that keeps all of its land and water and resources behind key and lock. And if you're not a rich person, you're not allowed to go behind there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just the base level. That's my politics right there. Just recognizing that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like me spending time with my family on Christmas, people will attach that feeling to America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like the ideal of it rather than, like, you know, all of the material aspects of, like, American imperialism and all of the things that affect not just your country, but the entire world.
I have friends who are like, I back everything you do and most of what you say, but, like, I just have, like, I love where I'm from, and I loved, like, 4th of July, lighting fireworks, and it's like, they give me this big long, they wax poetic about this thing that they see America as, and really at the end of the day what they're describing to me is spending time with their friends and family.
It's communal interaction,
Right. And I'm just like, yeah, bro, that's what I want too. More of that.
It's the
not just the 4 holidays a year where you're allowed to spend time with your family. I want that all the time.
Yeah, well,
but you can't have that so long as America exists.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, like what they're reacting to and what they love and what they're latching onto is like this idea of like a communal like spirit and communal interaction. And it's like, you know, back before capitalism was ascendant, you know, there was a thing called the commons.
Yep.
There was a thing that like the common people had in trust with each other outside of a fucking aristocratic or hierarchical kind of structure. So like, you know, maybe you could just have that without the America. You know what I mean? Like,
no, totally. And like, there's all sorts of different, like, there's brilliant people who come up with all sorts of different, like, amazing political ideas or economic ideas or all these kinds of things. And at this point, I'm willing to try, so long as it makes sense and it has the will of the majority of people in mind. Sure.
Yeah.
But all I know for a fact is that what we have right now
ain't working.
It's not working. And it's like you can watch these people compare our modern day to feudalism, and it's like sometimes I'm like, yo, I think that they might have had it better than we do. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, it's insane. No one owns shit. Everyone's renting. Everyone's living paycheck to paycheck. The commons are gone. You know what I mean? There's no common area for us to be.
There's no third space.
In America especially, you can't leave the house and go anywhere without spending money. They call it loitering. Existing without spending money.
Costs you money.
Right, exactly. So it's like, you're not allowed to loiter. You can't just go to a place and walk around and look. You know what I mean? Eventually someone's going to be like, what are you doing? Yeah, you can't be here. You got to go. Like, spend money or leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Spend money or die. You know what I mean? And so it's like, yeah, I'm just like, it's pretty infuriating.
This bleak attitude is something that I wanted to kind of touch on because I feel like it's kind of an animating focus of the new record to a certain degree. So I guess we'll do the like official business. But
yeah,
like, you have a new record coming out. It's the band's 8th full-length album, Keep Planting Flowers, January 10th through new label SharpTone Records. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I guess kind of like talk to me about the idea behind the new record, because I have a couple of quotes and like stuff in the press release, but I kind of want to get it from the horse's mouth. So like, what's going on the new record and how does it fit into the continuity of the band's back catalog?
Sure. A lot of people have been referring it to as Diamond 2.
Okay.
You know, so I think that's kind of like, I think from a purely aesthetic or like sonic point of view, I think that's what you can kind of like look forward to. Now, I don't know if that, for a lot of people, that might be a good thing. For some people, they might just be like, oh, I've already heard that. I want something else. But I know that we're all really proud of it.
Yeah. Lyrically,
I'm also really proud of it. And I think Keep Planting Flowers was like the perfect kind of, you know, at first it felt like such a weird title. It's like, what the hell does that mean? You know what I mean? But like, it is exactly what I'm trying to say. It's like, I say in the song, for those who have been truly devoured, keep planting flowers. And the idea is like, no matter how bad it gets, what other choice do you have? You know what I mean? Roll over and die, or keep planting flowers. It's like, you just gotta keep going. And it's, you know, it's almost this kind of like Gramscian thought of like, the people will come and they will destroy your thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They will destroy it.
They'll actively try and destroy
it. And not only will they actively try to destroy it, you will, if you try to defend it while they're destroying it, you'll get called a terrorist, you'll get called a crazy person, you'll get called violent, you'll get called aggressive, all that kind of shit. When you're just trying to mind your own business, people are trying to destroy your shit, and then you actually have the gall to stand up and be like, stop.
Yep.
Then everyone goes, you know what I mean? It happens to me all the time. But you gotta, even if they succeed in destroying your thing,
Yeah.
you just go and you start building it again.
Yeah.
Like that's to me the essence of like just being a human person.
Yeah.
And also from a mental health point of view, you know, I mean, especially here in Australia, you know what I mean? I mean, all over the world, but like suicide and things like this are huge topics. And we have tried to take an individualist approach to that, and it'll never work.
No.
I can't believe that we have the data to be like, oh, billions of people are feeling the same thing. Okay, well, let's not take a collective approach. Let's take an individual approach and try to solve each individual's personal like set of circumstances. And it's like, yo, motherfucker, if rent wasn't so bad and food didn't cost so much, these numbers would drop immediately.
Yeah.
And there's rafts of research that prove that information, but obviously that's not good for business. So instead they'll just be like, oh, get a therapist or buy a planner or take these meds or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Because anytime that you have the population needs something and you don't have a profit motive in mind, then that's like considered irrational.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not market rationality.
That's right.
Right. Don't
You're not thinking economically.
Right. Exactly.
That's like, your mistake.
Oh, people need to live in homes. Let's build homes so people aren't living outside. It's like, whoa,
Crazy
wait
thought.
a minute, buddy. You know what I mean? And so, because it's like, you know, I agree with a lot of people who are conservative in LA. They go outside and they see the homelessness problem and they're disgusted by it. The problem is, they think it is an individual issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? Where I agree with them, it disgusts me too. It's a public safety hazard. It's bad for everybody to have people living outside, having no access to healthcare, having no access to nutritious food, having no access to housing, things like that. Like these are massive problems that affect all of us. And so it's like, yeah, I agree. Let's solve these fucking issues. But in an efficient way, in a rational way. You know what I mean? Like we don't even have to get all virtue signaling about it. We don't got to get all like moralistic about it. Like, let's just look at the data.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's there.
Simple as that. Like we want to clean up our cities. Give people homes and healthcare.
Yeah.
City will be clean like this. You know what I mean? And those people will engage in the economy, and these people will engage in their communities. I see it happen every day with my own eyes.
I mean, like, if you're talking like purely just at like a data level, like that's the conversation that you see all the time when like people refer to like the crazy policies that happen like in Europe, particularly in like the Scandinavian countries that have like the slightest social democratic bent to their capitalism. And they're like, wow, they have like high literacy and like low unemployment and everyone has a high standard of living and like general happiness. It's like, I wonder what that could be.
No, for
just
sure.
like the basic checks and balances on like power. Crazy thought.
Yeah,
Weird.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that like, you know, I say that all the time. It's like you have these places that are doing capitalism better. Like if America's like, all right, we're going to get rid of rent.
Yeah.
It's that whatever problems they have of a supposed revolution would be gone, but they can't, or give us healthcare.
Yeah.
And they would de-radicalize 100 million people. But they can't even do that to save themselves. And that is like the most shining example of the irrationality of capitalism. It won't save itself.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's the capitalist realism, right? Like the inability to imagine a world that isn't shaped by capitalism.
Right. Easier to picture the end of the world than the end of capitalism. You know what I mean?
I want to kind of circle back to Keep Planting Flowers a little bit, because I'm reading a book at the moment by an Italian social theorist. His name's Franco Berardi. I'm not sure if you know him, but his most recent book is called Quit Everything, and the title was provocative enough to make me pick it up. But he's basically talking about how like this like general feeling of malaise that everyone has, like skyrocketing rates of depression and people like basically just checking out of electoral politics because it doesn't fucking do anything.
Right.
He's like trying to come at that from a critical analysis point of view and be like, why is that? And he's calling it like this idea of desertion. And he was like, you know, when there's a total war on the idea of social subjectivity, this idea of the collective and the commons that we were talking about, is like the only rational choice is to desert,
Right.
is to kind of to check out. And I haven't finished the book, but
Sure.
I'm not completely sold on that argument.
Sure.
And I feel like reading through the press release for Keep Planting Flowers and everything I know about your politics in the band, like I feel like your take on that is like slightly more optimistic and hopeful in the idea of like, yeah, things are shit, but like if you just roll over and check out, how are we ever going to get out of it? You
No,
know
for
what
sure.
Like,
I mean, that's it exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to keep going.
have to build.
You know what
You
I
have to
mean?
build
It's like,
something. Yeah.
You absolutely have to. And so it's like, and like, I think we need more bands and more artists to
Yeah.
like be talking about these things. And it's happening everywhere. You know what I mean? Artists are definitely like trying to make sense of their material surroundings through music, and you see it all over the place, from indie music to hip hop to hardcore to metalcore to everything.
I mean, even at the very top, like, you know, you got pop artists like Chapel Roan kind of like melting down about all these like crazy expectations that are put on people in like
Sure.
the high profile like pop realm. And it's like all the way down, it's people finding it increasingly harder to live off what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like at all levels, the problem is kind of the same. Some would say systemic.
No, for sure. I think, you know, like the first track of the album
Yeah.
is called We All Die Anyway. And it was like,
Very optimistic. Very
well,
hopeful.
that was the thing. I kind of flip it on its head, where it's like, that was, people would say that to me all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll talk my shit and I'll be like, yo, we got to blah, blah, blah. We got, and everyone's like, what's the point? We're all just going to die. So who gives a shit? And so I take that phrase and it's like, well, then fight for something.
Yeah.
Right? If we're all going to die anyway, then just be brave.
Yeah.
How about that? You know what I mean? It's like, why be a coward about it? Oh, we're all going to die, so I'll be a coward. It's like, well, that, to me, that doesn't make any sense. It should be like, oh, well, then I'm going to be brave and fight for something because we're all going to die anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I try to take that phrase that is inherent, that normally has a negative kind of like tinge on it, and
Yeah.
kind of give it a more optimistic spin and be
like
like,
that.
yeah, well, we're all going to die anyway. So it's like, like, be sick. Don't be whack.
What,
You know
what do you have to lose by trying to build
Right,
something? You know what I
right.
mean? The thing that I always find so frustrating with people who have like a conservative mindset is because like it's so deeply rooted in this like proposed idea of traditional values and like protecting the family and like creating a better world for your children. It's like, okay, so like on its face, say that everything the data shows us about climate change is true,
Sure.
that the world is actively becoming like more hospitable to human life, then shouldn't you want the things that make that better rather than like wanting all of the opposite things that
Of
will
course.
make it worse? Like
Right.
if you love your children, if you love the world and you want to make it better for them, there's like a total dissonance there that I just like am dumbfounded that people can't see. And like,
No, totally.
yeah, so I get it. Like you just have to like push through that nihilism of just being like,
It's hard.
there's nothing you can do.
It's
I mean,
hard.
how do you do that at a personal level? Like I'm sure it's difficult for you to do this day after day after day.
Oh, it is, especially like musically it's hard because I put so much of myself into, we all
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you release music and people are so brutal, but you just have to be like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of, you know, like what I do in my, what I do in my home life with All Power and shit like that, then there's the people who like, you know, I'll have this amazing day where the most incredible things in the world happen.
Yeah.
And then people just want to be like, oh, well, you're only doing that to like make yourself feel good, was something people say to me. And it used to bother me, but now I'm like, well, wait, yeah.
Isn't that kind of what we're all doing?
It's like,
what?
why do you eat a hamburger? You know what I mean? Because it fucking makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Like this idea that we have to live through life doing things that make us feel bad as some sort of badge of honor. Like helping people resonates with me and makes me feel good.
Yeah.
We should be going, oh, let's do more of that.
More of that.
You know what I mean? Like we get this one life, and if it makes me feel good to give out free groceries or to start a free medical clinic or to help people sign up for food stamps so that they can get food or get into not socialized housing, but like Section 8 housing or whatever, build a community garden where there once was a trash heap. If that makes me feel good, well, I shouldn't, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And I think it would make a lot of people feel good because people talk about human nature. I have never felt more connected to my human nature than when I do those things.
Yeah.
I feel sick to my stomach when I feel like I have to step on someone to get to beat them for an opportunity to feed my family. That makes me feel sick.
And again, that's the pernicious nature of this system and of this capitalist imperative, right? Like it's like pushing alienation on people as if it's like the only possible option, and then turning everything into economics and being like, it's the free market and competition. So like you have to win. And if that means people lose, then that's just how it has to be.
No,
it's
exactly.
Like, no, it doesn't.
Well, what's crazy is I'm saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. People have to lose.
Yeah.
Just a small amount of people have to lose. You're saying a lot of people have to lose. I'm actually saying, no, people do have to lose.
Listen to the man.
Just a small amount of people.
Facts.
Like 25 people.
I have a kind of point to close on here. So I was like thinking about all of this and, you know, in anticipation of the new record, I was thinking of one of my favorite authors, is a philosopher, Mark Fisher. He wrote the book Capitalist Realism. So like before he died in 2017, he was working on a book that was to be called Acid Communism. And this was meant to be like the theory that he was working through in a bunch of work. But he was basically talking about how we need to tap into the revolutionary spirit that happened in the 60s, particularly like 68, all the like protests and stuff there, for this idea of like collective consciousness raising was the term that he used, which is like a striving for a new seeing, a new hearing, a new thinking, and a new loving. And I think the loving part of that is like emphasized, right? So I wanted to ask you, like, if you consider, and maybe you don't, stick to your guns as a project of consciousness raising, right? To try and get people to see new things, hear new things, think new things, love new things. What would you want people to take away from Keep Planting Flowers? What's the thing to be raised from listening to that body of work?
I'm going to say what I'm about to say next with the utmost respect because I love Mark Fisher as well.
Okay.
This is a man who did not keep planting flowers.
No, he did not.
You know, he killed himself.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You have this brilliant person who just couldn't do it anymore.
I mean, historically, like, had real bad battles with depression.
Sure.
And that infused a lot of his work. But yeah, like, I mean, he couldn't take it. So,
And so as a socialist who, you know, I don't think that we have the luxury to be like giving up like that. You know what I mean? And again, maybe that's the wrong thing to say, but like we need everybody.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I think the world is at a deficit for his loss.
For sure.
So I completely agree.
100%. It's like, you know, and I know he's also very critical of some of the things that I believe as well. Which is totally fine. You know what I mean? Like that's just what leftists do. We critique each other, we criticize each other, and we try to hopefully create a stronger ideas.
Yeah. Progression through struggle.
Exactly.
That's
The
whole
thing
idea.
is when relating movements to the 60s, to me, at least living in America,
Yeah.
the 60s and the generation who like led that like love movement, some of the worst people to ever exist in the modern age, and are directly responsible for the hellscape that currently exists as American politics.
Yeah. And I mean, like, to clarify, like, all that exists of that book is like the introduction. So like the actual meat of like his thesis just isn't there because he hadn't wrote it. But like,
I'm sure he would have gotten into that.
He very much agrees, and he basically says that like they had the kernel of that revolutionary spirit, that countercultural impulse, and then in the way that most things do under capitalism, it got basically like turned into this hedonistic,
Right.
free love, hippie kind of thing that eventually led to most of those people not following through on any of those ideas and becoming the generations that made the world a shittier place.
Well, because capitalism will co-opt every movement it possibly can.
Exactly right.
And that's why when people come to me and they're like, well, why can't you just believe the exact same things?
Yeah.
But why do you have to call it socialism? Because socialism and communism is the one thing that capitalism cannot co-opt.
Yeah.
It cannot co-opt it. It has tried. It cannot do it. It tried it with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
It proved to work with Bernie Sanders. He would have beaten Trump. The Democratic Party destroyed the man.
And nix that in the bud.
And that's it. But what that showed, what the data showed, is that a huge majority of people from California to Texas to New York to Florida to everywhere was feeling the things that this guy was saying.
Yeah.
But then those things got co-opted and destroyed. And it's like, I'm sorry to rant, but like,
dude, this is your space to rant, please.
There's a book called Chaos. You know that book?
Yes.
Okay. Tom O'Neill. If you haven't read Chaos, it's pretty thick and it can look intimidating, but you should definitely check it out. There's also many interviews with Tom O'Neill as well if you want to check this out. But basically what happened was, and I'll try to give it a really quick gist.
Okay.
Tom O'Neill is just an investigative journalist. He's not a leftist. He's not political at all, but he was an investigative journalist, and he was hired by some magazine to do a 30 years, and this is in the 90s, a 30 years of the Charles Manson murders.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like, where are we now and all this kinds of thing.
Sure.
How has it affected culture and all this shit.
Retrospective type deal,
right.
yeah.
And he's like, yo, this has been done to death. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do this. And the magazine's like, just do it. We'll pay you the money, whatever. It's a job. Just do it. And he went on a 20-year life ruining rabbit hole where he found out that Charles Manson was a federal agent and an op to literally hijack this movement of the 60s and destroy it. You know what I mean? And like, by chapter 7, he finally realizes, he goes, oh, the feds, the CIA used Charles Manson to destroy the Black Panthers. And to him, to Tom O'Neill, who's not a socialist or a communist, this was mind-blowing to him.
Yeah.
But if you're a socialist, you understand this is the sole function of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
This is what they do. They destroy movements like that.
It's the imperialist like push, but turned inward, right? To control the population.
And so to him, he couldn't. It just broke his brain.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, Marxism would tell him, brother, this is not the first time. This is the billionth time this has happened. Yeah. And that's what happens. But you just don't want to believe that there's this network of some of the most brutal people who commit the most egregious acts ever, and then to all in the name of protecting capital and the capitalist ideology. You know what I mean? And then they project those things onto Cuban people. They project these things onto Venezuelan, Chinese, Vietnamese, North Korean, Indonesian, all these people. They project these horrors that they themselves commit onto these other societies who, of course, aren't perfect, but have not committed a fraction of the terror that the West has committed. You know what I mean? Not a fraction. And so, you know, I think the education and like looking into these things and just realizing that like this thing that dictates all of our lives will stop at nothing. It has destroyed billions of people. Yeah. You're not special. You know what I mean? Like, it will destroy you too. Yeah. And I guess ultimately that's why I think maybe people are starting to realize this, and maybe that's why they're feeling a little like they do have a lot to lose. Yeah. All these bands right now, all these hardcore bands, metalcore bands who are on top of the world, they have a lot to lose. Yeah. They have a lot to risk by saying the wrong thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? I said some shit about, my opinion on what was happening in Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we got kicked off of 7 festivals. You know what I mean? Tens of thousands of dollars lost.
Yeah.
We have mortgages. Chris has a kid. This has a material effect on our life.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I understand why people, then there's the Palestine shit. I've been told by multiple cities, not promoters, cities in Germany, that I'm not allowed to come back there. That promoters will not book me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of my stance on this thing. And so it's like, I don't blame anyone for being like, that path sounds terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I just wanted to play music. I just wanted to play my guitar. I didn't want to do all this other shit. And that's fine. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying it would be nice. And the repercussions on people who do decide to say things would be a lot less if there was more of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a solidarity thing, right?
100%.
Like, you have less to lose if everyone is invested in the courage to take that act.
Sure.
Right?
The Palestine thing would have destroyed Stick to Your Guns if culturally it hadn't become so clear.
Oh yeah.
It was made so clear to so many people that even those who are still like trying to both sides it, like, there's venues in Germany that will be like, oh, well, we're not booking anyone who's pro-Palestine. Then almost the majority of the rest of the world is now boycotting those venues, and those venues are having to shut down.
Yeah.
So they fucked around and they found out, because there is a massive group of people who are like, all right, fine, fuck you then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, yes, we're learning.
More of this, please.
Imagine if all of us who are suffocated by rent, imagine if we all didn't pay. What would they do? What would they do? Arrest us all? Not a chance.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like we talk about all the time. We have an amazing organization called the Debt Collective that comes into All Power, and they meet and they get people's student debt wiped out, gone, because they've realized, oh, there's $1 trillion of debt owed to the banks. And instead of them being like, we're crushed under that, they went, oh, wait, no, we own them.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we just stop paying our debts, stop paying our taxes,
They're leveraged
stop
out the
paying our
fucking
rents,
wazoo.
they
They're
got
gone.
nothing.
Yeah.
They have nothing. And it's like, it's so clear. And everyone's probably, there might be people who watch this who are like, this guy's nuts. It's just, think about it though for a second. Think about it rationally. Think about it just efficient. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, oh, I only want people who take the same stances as me to reap the benefits of this. No, you might be a Trumper. Stop paying your rent. Stop. You might be someone who's going to vote for Kamala. Stop paying your rent. I don't give a fuck what you say you believe politically. There are collective solutions to our problems.
Yeah.
We can duke all that other bullshit out later.
That's exactly
You know what I
right.
mean? Like, there's collective issues right now that are suffocating us, that are suffocating the planet, that are suffocating, animals, just everything. And it's like, there's things we can do about it right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want people to grow up past this very basic, kind of infantile understanding of what the political process is, and understand that, like, if you have a beating heart in you, that's political.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you are politics.
I mean,
politics are the way that people, the average person, engages with the world and engages with each other. That's what politics is. It's
Yeah.
not, oh, Coke or Pepsi once every 4 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like just crazy.
I mean, people who say like, oh, not everything has to be political. It's like, fundamentally disagree. Yeah. Existing in this world is a political act. Whether you choose that or not is irrelevant.
Right.
Like, those systems choose you regardless.
Exactly.
You're fucking in it.
Yeah.
So choose and make a decision.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, not everything has to be political. Geez, why does a bottle of water cost so much? You know what I mean? It's like, motherfucker, dude. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Anyway.
I think that's probably enough. I think we've definitely covered all the bases.
Putting him to sleep back there. He's like, Jesus.
Nah, he's all right. He's doing fine. Yes, that's the shit.
Hey,
that's the real
let's
shit.
go.
It really is that deep. Jesse, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been dope.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do everything he says. Check all that shit out. I'll put links in the
Save
description
yourself.
for All Power and the resources that you have, which are fantastic. And if you want to find out more about any of the shit that Jesse's talked about, go read that shit.
And then January 10th, our new album, Keep Planting Flowers, is out there. And for those of you who have been completely devoured, I see you. Keep planting flowers.
Hell yeah. Subscribe now to the Pitch of Discontent Patreon to receive access to extended cuts of our bonus episodes, as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes content, monthly Patreon-only episodes, member-only votes, the TPD community chat, and much more. Go now to patreon.com/tpdpod and join for as little as $5 a month. That link again is patreon.com/tpdpod. Thanks for watching the show.